I didn't call 911 when the pearl-white SUV plowed through my brick mailbox. I called when I could hand an officer the whole case like a tidy folder labeled time, stamped backed up in the cloud by the time the squad cars rolled up. My garage door was rising like a stage curtain, and the neighborhood was watching the HOA president's son sync his own story with 4 bright words caught on my hidden camera. Bro, watch this. My name is Ethan Brooks, and if you know a guy who loves coffee that tastes like it was made on purpose, who keeps his Ethernet lines neat and his sockets labeled, yeah, that's me. Maple Glen Estates was quiet in the ways I like. Quiet, sprinklers at dawn, porch lights like constellations, the mail truck sighing to a stop, and at the curb, I'd laid a small claim to order with a brick mailbox. I set 1 July perfectly level joints, brass numbers you could see gleam from the stop sign. It wasn't just a box, it was a statement about how I like things to stay where they belong. That night, the sound didn't ask permission. Not a bang, so much as a deep metallic growl that made the hairs on my arms stand up. Maya muted the TV, and I pulled the blinds back just enough to see our curb turned into a red rubble altar, with Linda Matthews's loaner SUV bent over it. Steam hissing, the driver door opened, and here came Kyle. Backwards, cap, shaky grin. The kind of confidence that grows in a house where consequences file under suggestions, and he actually said it. Your mailbox jumped out, and I remember hearing my own laugh come out flat as I stepped down the driveway in my slippers. Tiny gravel-popping Kyle. You're on my grass, and your mom's car is in my bricks. Your opening argument is a cartoon. He flicked his eyes toward the street, like he could summon a different past. You can't prove I did anything. Could have been anybody. And I let my glance travel to the garage, Eve where the dome camera lived to the doorbell lens, then across to the birdhouse on the oak that wasn't built for birds. Call your mom, I said. Steady as a level bubble. You're going to need her. Morning wasn't kinder. The Lexus was gone, but it left a dark stain in the grass and 2 long ruts like claw marks. I was halfway through a plan to call insurance when the mail carrier eased around the corpse of my pride and handed me a cream envelope stamped with the HOA crest violation. Failure to maintain property Zertis non-compliant structure at curb. $500 due Friday, signed by Linda Matthews, in a swoop that probably felt powerful at her kitchen table. I stood in the sun with the letter between my fingers and felt something click into place in my chest. Not rage exactly, more like a switch from casual to mission. Inside, Maya skimmed the letter, set it down like a receipt and said, "Oh, it's an escalation." And even before I could decide between a broom and a lawsuit, my phone pinged with a Maple Glen Connect post from Linda. A tidy paragraph about unapproved curb structures and community safety and swift action. No names, but plenty of aim, and the comments started with fake concern and drifted quickly to gossip. You know what I mean? The kind where a stranger suggests you probably didn't pull a permit because your bricks looked aggressive. Maya's keys tapped softly. I'm archiving. Screenshots. Timestamps the whole thing. And something in me stood up straighter because I wasn't going to shout into the wind. I was going to build a case you could hold in your hand. Step 1 was petty on purpose. I dug out a hole and planted a skinny code-compliant metal mailbox on a wooden post. Exactly 1 inch inside the county survey pin. Photo GPS tag, thank you very much. And that flimsy stand looked ridiculous beside the noble ruin, which was exactly the point. A small flag that said, I follow rules, even when they're used like clubs at 10:02 a.m. Linda came marching down her drive with a clipboard, like a sheriff's star, two bored shadows in tow, Tom and Caroline, and she stopped on the edge of my lawn with that smile people wear when they think they're about to teach you how things work. "Fines due Friday. Remove the hazardous debris," she said loud enough to feed the curtains across the street. I leaned on my shovel. "Linda, your son hit my mailbox on my property," and she gave a little metal laugh. "Very serious accusation," he said. "Your structure was over the line. Section 8, paragraph 4. He had to avoid it. And right on cue, Maya stepped onto the porch with a teacup she didn't need, and a voice you don't argue with. We have the survey pins and county map, happy to show the metadata." Neighbors pretended to tend plants. Dogs forgot how to walk. And Linda dropped her voice to a threat that somehow got louder. "There are people who make life easier for themselves here, and people who make it hard. Permits can be reviewed, assessments revisited. I can issue 10 violations before lunch." And I said, "Cool." I collect them like baseball cards, which got Tom coughing and Caroline whispering. Linda, the kind of warning that means the room is changing under your feet. That afternoon, my office became a war room. 3 monitors, 3 angles, 3 receipts. Exhibit A was the doorbell cam showing the timeline and the porch light. Snap, Exhibit B was the garage corner cam with the clean angle. Where the Lexus doesn't drift, it turns bricks. Explode. Kyle steps out and taps a brick like it bit him first, and Exhibit C was my favorite because I had built it like a prank and it became a truth machine. The birdhouse cam. Catching his face lit blue by his own phone and his voice crisp as a finger snap. "Bro, watch this." And while I stitched angles and timestamps, Maya went fishing with a dummy account and came back smiling with a screenshot of a friend's comment under a now-vanished post. "Dude, you actually did it." The digital ghost of a brag. We sat shoulder to shoulder and looked at impact, identity, intent. Airtight from 3 sides. And I could have emailed it to insurance and the police and been done. But bullies don't stop at private truth. They stop at public clarity. So I set a stage. I took a loud call at sunset near Mrs. Donovan's listening window. "Yeah, the old security system still has the hard drive in the garage. I'm moving last night's footage tomorrow. Can't risk losing it." Then I did everything I hate, in the name of everything I love. I left the side garage door unlocked, set a dead server tower on the bench with a wired blinking LED like a lure, mounted a new motion camera high on a shelf aimed at the door, and the decoy, set the floodlights to a 5-second delay, so a person would feel invisible long enough to act like himself, propped my own phone against a paint can, with the wide lens on, and the mic hot notifications set to silent taps to me and Maya. Then we waited in the kind of quiet that feels like the air is holding its breath. At 1:17 a.m., my phone buzzed once. Not dramatic, not loud, just decisive, and Maya already had the feet up the door. Eased open, a thin rectangle of darker dark. A kid in a hoodie slid in. Phone beam jittering over lawn tools and boxes until it found the blinking red dot. Like moth to porch light. He moved straight to it, and I stepped from the kitchen into the garage and flipped the main switch. Fluorescence hummed. And he flinched, looking for something. I asked. He grabbed for the box, careful. Vintage junk. I said. He pointed at my phone. "Give me that, old man, first." Rude second. No, a wrench slid and clanged on the concrete like a cymbal, and he lunged for my wrist. I didn't swing. I just kept my phone high and my feet moving. And from the doorway, Maya called out like a stage manager. "Smile, Kyle. You're in 4K. And right then, the garage door started its slow roll-up because she hit the opener. My favorite kind of drama, the kind with witnesses. Porch lights bloomed. Neighbors leaked onto lawns. Phones lifted like fireflies. The siren came from far to near and settled at my curb. Miller had the kind of calm you can lean against. He took in the scene. Linda screeched up in her own car with a story already on her tongue. "Officer, arrest him. He lured my son." And Miller didn't take the bait. He looked at me. "Walk me through it." And I did with a single minute of video and a cloud link that played nice on department devices. Multiple angles off-site. Backups. "Timestamps," I said. And he nodded and told his partner to put it on the cruiser tablet for transparency, which is a word that feels like sunrise. When the birdhouse footage came up, bright screen on a cold hood, neighbors reflected in the glass. The block went quiet in that human way that tells you the truth. Just walked in. Kyle's grin, the words, the deliberate swerve, the violent punctuation of brick on bumper, yeah. That happened. And then the garage angle rolled, and we all watched the second bad decision. In one long week. Linda swung hard at the only pitch she had left. Invasion of privacy, and the sergeant said, without even looking at her. Exterior view on a public way, recording inside the homeowner's garage after entry, and 2 body cams rolling. And right then, Caroline stepped out of Linda's shadow and found her own voice. "Linda, is this true?" And Linda had nothing useful to say. Caroline turned to Tom. Emergency session now, and their phones lit like a tiny parliament, while Maple Glen Connect lit up with the tablet video, and neighbors poured in their own stories. Trash can finds, letters about porch lights, threats dressed up as guidelines, a chorus that finally found its harmony. Miller spoke for the cameras and the crowd. Kyle Matthews, citations for property destruction and criminal trespass. He said it plain, like stating the weather on the cruiser hood. The tablet dimmed as Officer Reed filed. Caroline came back into the spill of my garage light, with her shoulders squared and the board's decision on her tongue. Effective immediately, and by board. Vote: Linda Matthews is removed as president of Maple Glen Estates. The fine against Mr. Brooks is void. And I swear you could hear the smallest sound, the weight of a clipboard dropping a few inches in Linda's hand. The spell breaking without applause. Just the kind of quiet where people realize what they've been breathing. Here's the part I sit with, and maybe you will too. I set a trap for a kid who was already deep into his own bad story. I made it safe. Clean documented. I waited until I could hand the police a case with a bow on it. And still. When I scrub back to the frame where he freezes under the harsh lights, I feel 2 truths at once. Satisfaction that a bully finally ran out of road, and a question about how far a person should have to go to defend a curb from people who insist they speak for the community. If you were me, would you have called sooner? Paid the fine, kept your head down, or done exactly what I did? And no more if you were. The board, would you yank a president the same night or schedule a polite meeting? Nobody would trust, anyway. Tell me in the comments, who's right? Who's wrong? Where's the line between order and control on your block? And if you've lived through your own HOA circus or a neighbor from heck saga with receipts, share it hit. Like if this kind of story hits a nerve. Subscribe for more true neighborhood drama, and drop where you're watching from. I'll be in the replies with a cup of coffee and a level answering questions. And yeah, keeping the cameras rolling.